I have to say that I leave Kiev tonight more encouraged about the unity and the resolve about 2024 and its absolute strategic importance for Ukraine. I also leave more confident that even as Ukraine strengthens its defenses, Mr. Putin's going to get some nice surprises on the battlefield, and that Ukraine will make some very strong success this year.
This is my video update on this Thursday midday, February the 1st. Let's talk about some news. And we have to start things off with the soap opera that is Project Ukraine. Like sands through the hourglass of time, so are the days of Kiev. and in the third episode of the soap opera known as The Days of Kiev, we have the article from CNN, which claims that Zelensky is ready to can Zaluzhny. This is the title from CNN. Zelensky set to announce dismissal of Ukraine's top commander within days as rift grows over war. Source says a formal announcement has not been made, meaning Zaluzhny was still in post as of Wednesday evening. However, a presidential decree is expected by the end of the week, one of the sources told CNN, in what would be the biggest military shakeup by Zelensky since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion almost 2 years ago. They always have to say full-scale invasion. They can't just say invasion. It always has to be full-scale invasion, even though it's not even close to a full-scale invasion. But they always have to put that in there, the collective West media. But yeah, this would be a huge shakeup. And can you imagine if this was Russia removing their top general, Gerasimov? Can you imagine the stories that would be coming out of the collective West media if this was Putin removing Gerasimov, and Gerasimov told Putin, I'm not going to leave? Can you imagine the articles that would be coming out of the mainstream media if it was the other way around? Anyway, CNN, they report that two names in particular are being discussed as possible successors. One of the sources, a senior military commander, told CNN. One of them is the current head of the Defense Intelligence Directorate, Kirill Budanov, a 38-year-old general known to have strong ties with Zelensky and seen as representing a new generation of military leaders. And the other person, CNN reveals, is Syrsky. Syrsky, I believe, is the commander of the ground forces. I think that is his position. But he was in charge of Bakhmut. He was running the operation in Bakhmut, where Syrsky was defeated by Wagner. So those are the two names that are being floated out to replace Zaluzhny. So here's my thinking on this. If the collective West, the Pentagon, the State Department, the CIA, NATO, if they want to shift this war from a conventional war to an insurgency war, then Budanov will be appointed as the commander-in-chief. If they decide that they want to continue to fight a conventional war in 2024, then it will be Syrsky. I think it's that simple. And Budanov, according to The Economist, the other day, they reported that Budanov had shown no interest in becoming the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. But I believe Budanov was playing it cool. I believe he took a step back and he saw the fighting between Zelensky and Zaluzhny, and he probably said, you know what? For now, I'm going to take a neutral position. So when I'm asked if I'm going to be the guy to take over the military, I'm going to say no, it's not me, or I'm not interested in the position. Let me see how this dispute between Zelensky and Zaluzhny unfolds. Let me see what the United States decides. let me see what they decide, and then I'll take my position after I see what my collective West masters want from all of this that's going on from Project Ukraine. And I think that's what he did. And now CNN says that his name is indeed being considered as the replacement for Zaluzhny. So if it is an insurgency war that the collective West decides to shift towards, then the person who is going to take over the operation is going to be Budanov. If they decide to go with a conventional war, it will be Syrskyi. And I think what's going to decide this, what type of war they want waged against Russia in Ukraine, is going to be the money that they manage to collect. It's going to be that simple. If they can get the 61 billion from the United States to Ukraine, if they can get the 50 billion from the EU to Ukraine, which they're going to be voting on today. Borrell said that the EU is going to give another 23 billion to Ukraine as well, on top of the 50 billion, if they can steal the Russian frozen assets, the 300 billion. Depending on how much money they can get, which also means how many weapons they can hand over to Ukraine, that will decide whether they're going to stick with a conventional war in 2024, if they're going to move to an insurgency. And that will decide, in my opinion, that will decide who is going to command the armed forces. So that's how I believe this is going to play out. So Budanov, he actually gave an interview to the Telegraph yesterday, and he said that the Russian offensive that is taking place right now, which is not true. Russia's not on the offensive right now, but Budanov is saying Russia is on the offensive. He says that this offensive from Russia will fizzle out, will become completely exhausted, those are his words, by early spring. And then he says that once this Russian offensive, which is not taking place, but he says it's taking place, once this Russian offensive is completely exhausted, then Ukraine is going to go on the attack. They're going to launch their offensive, the counter to the counter to the counter offensive, part 2, the counter to the counter offensive, part 2, which is, as I've reported in previous videos, the same exact plan that they had in the first counteroffensive that offended me and offended you and offended everybody, which is Tokmak, Melitopol, Sea of Azov, split the Russian ground forces, then attack Crimea with long-range missiles, get Putin to capitulate, regime change in Moscow, and the balkanization of Russia. We know the thinking and the plan behind all of this. But Budanov is saying we're gonna go on our counter to the counteroffensive once the Russian counteroffensive is extinguished in early spring. So that is what Budanov told the Telegraph. Ukraine forces will go on the offensive against Russia once more in the spring. Military intelligence chief Budanov told the Telegraph on Tuesday. Remains unclear how Kiev will acquire the weapons or the 500,000 men it needs to cover its losses after last summer's failed counteroffensive. Budanov claimed that Russia's offensive operations around the Donbas settlements of Kupiansk, Liman, Artyomovsk, called Bakhmut in Ukraine, and Avdiivka will be completely exhausted by early spring. We make a move, the enemy makes a move. Budanov said, now is the enemy's turn, it will end, and then ours will start. So where are they going to get the weapons and the money? Well, we're on a wait and see right now. Let's see how much money they can scrape together from Congress and the European Union and stealing the Russian assets. Let's wait and see what happens there. And as far as the 500,000 men, well, Zelensky said the other day to the German media ARD, the media company ARD, in an interview that Ukraine has 880,000 soldiers. So, maybe in springtime, as Budanov says, Ukraine is going to launch counter offensive towards Crimea part 2, because part 1 turned out so well for Ukraine. So that's what's going on in the latest episode of the hit soap opera, The Days of Kiev. Zelensky tried to fire Zaluzhny. Zaluzhny said no. Zelensky tried to get Zaluzhny to resign. Zaluzhny said no. Zelensky told Zaluzhny, I will give you a position as national security coordinator. Zaluzhny said no. Zelensky looked weak. It exposed that he does not have the support of the military, and the military is supporting Zaluzhny. Zelensky cries to Nuland. Nuland gets freaked out, and she says, "This is really bad. This looks really bad because all the collective West media is reporting on this row between Zelensky and Zaluzhny. I better get to Kiev and sort this out because my man Zelensky looks really weak, and this is what coups d'états are made of, right? When the head of state tries to replace the military leader does not go, and then the military leader decides to remove the head of state. So Nuland, in a panic, she flew to Kiev, and she's the one that made the decision as to what is going to happen. And that's why you got this CNN article that pretty much came out at the same time that Nuland arrived in Kiev. I said this in my video yesterday, actually. I said that when all is said and done, it's going to be the United States, the Pentagon, the State Department, NATO. They're going to be the ones who decide whether it's going to be Zelensky or Zaluzhny, insurgency or conventional war. It's going to be the collective West that decides what's going to happen in 2024. And who better to make that decision than the person that birthed Project Ukraine, the mother of Project Ukraine. They say Mother Russia, Mother Russia. Well, in Ukraine's case, it's Mother Nuland, and that's not an exaggeration. That's not me being funny either. I mean, it's Mother Nuland. She's the one that birthed Project Ukraine. This is her baby, and she got freaked out. As probably did all of Congress. I can imagine Speaker Johnson or Marjorie Taylor Greene, Rand Paul, J.D. Vance. They're reading articles from the Financial Times and The Economist, and they're probably saying, what is going on in Ukraine? You're expecting us to give $61 billion to this S show? You have the president trying to fire the military commander, and the military commander is telling the president no, and they're talking about putting the intel chief to run the military. What does this guy know about running a conventional war? And they're probably like, this thing is a disaster. And so, Nuland, she had to get over to Kiev. And one of the reasons she went to Kiev is to put lipstick on the pig, as they say, to make it seem like everything is going well in Kiev. That's why she said that she's confident that Congress will approve the money to Kiev. She said that what Ukraine has done is a miracle by preventing Russia from taking over the country in 3 days. Ghost of Kiev, Siege of Kiev, Zaporozhye Avenger, the Great Kherson counteroffensive, all that BS. She said it's a miracle what Ukraine has done. And she's like, 2024 is going to be a year of success for Kiev, for Ukraine. It's going to be a year full of success. And then she said that there's going to be surprises for Putin on the battlefield. Surprises for Putin on the battlefield. The Putin, that is the Putin, Miss Nuland. Surprises for the Putin on the battlefield in 2024. So that was her warning, her threat to Putin. And she said it with a smile. She was like giddy. She was saying there's going to be surprises on the battlefield. So she's trying to paint a picture of victory in Kiev because, 61 billion is at stake. And J.D. Vance and Rand Paul and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz, they're reading all these articles about this soap opera that's unfolding in Ukraine. And do you think they're gonna be more motivated to approve 61 billion to Ukraine? Hell no, no chance. So she goes there, Nuland. She goes to Kiev and she paints this optimistic picture of Ukraine in 2024. But that wasn't the main reason she went to Ukraine. The main reason she went to Ukraine is because this whole thing had to get sorted out. And so the State Department, they made their decision. She's going to stick with Zelensky for now. for now. If Budanov becomes the guy and we move to an insurgency war, then Zelensky is toast. He's gone. If it's Syrski and they decide on a conventional war, then Zelensky is safe for now. So that's how all of this is going to play out. I think Zelensky and Syrski, they have a good relationship. But if it's Budanov and they go to an insurgency war because for some reason they can't get all the money that they're looking to get, then Zelensky better pack his bags and get to Miami or LA or wherever he's going to go. But so a couple of thoughts on Nuland's visit to Kiev. An interesting press conference, huh? What a weird press conference that she gave outside in the snow, taking questions from reporters. What's the deal with that? That was very bizarre. I'm still trying to figure that one out. But the photos that I have seen from Nuland's trip, okay, she arrives in Kiev. She meets with Ambassador, what's her name? Ambassador Bridget Brink, on the brink of a disaster in Kiev. Yeah, Bridget Brink. So she meets with Ambassador Brink. Okay, of course, the U.S. ambassador in Ukraine. Photos of her meeting with the defense minister, Umerov. So she met with him. Photos of Nuland meeting with Kuleba, the foreign minister. Photos of Nuland meeting with Yermak, the number two to Zelensky. Zelensky's entertainment lawyer, who many people believe is really making the decisions in Kiev. And photos of Nuland meeting with my precious Prime Minister Shmyhal. No photos of Nuland with Zelensky. I think that's very telling. There's no doubt that she met with Zelensky, obviously, but no photos of Nuland hugging Zelensky, or at least as of the time of this recording. Maybe there'll be photos published later on, but as of the time of this recording, I haven't seen a single photo or video, or actually even a statement which says that Nuland sat down with President Zelensky. What does that tell you? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm still trying to figure that one out. I'm still working that one out. Obviously, she met with Zelensky. Obviously, she told Zelensky Zaluzhny's out. Obviously, CNN, they timed the release of their article to coincide with Nuland's trip. Obviously, the Telegraph, they timed the release of the interview with Budanov to precede Nuland's trip to Kiev. So all of this stuff has been coordinated. Budanov's statements, the CNN article confirming that Zaluzhny is gone, Nuland's trip to Kiev. She meets with everybody except the president. Very, very interesting. And that's it. That is what is going on in Kiev. Like sands through the hourglass of time, so are the days of Kiev. Let's move on now. And the publication, FP, Foreign Policy, publication magazine, whatever you call it, they are reporting that there is a push from many member states in NATO to get Ukraine into NATO. There's going to be a big NATO meeting coming up very, very soon. I'm not sure of the exact date, but there is going to be a big NATO meeting, and a lot of the Eastern European states and other member states in NATO are really pushing hard for Ukraine to enter NATO, but there are two countries that are pushing back and refuse to allow Ukraine into NATO, according to FP, and those countries are the USA and Germany. US and Germany push to delay Ukraine NATO membership invite. Ukraine and its Eastern European allies want the invite to come soon, but Washington and Berlin are wary. Basically, what FP is reporting is that the US and Germany say that if there's an invitation extended to Ukraine to formally enter NATO, then we're looking at a full-out war in Ukraine, and possibly a war between NATO and Russia. And I imagine that the US and Germany, No, the U.S. understands that NATO is not ready to go to war with Russia yet. Yet. They would like to buy another year or two worth of time. So that's probably what's going on here. And of course, you got to sort out the money going to Kiev and the weapons, and all these things still need to be sorted out. And that's what they're hoping 2024 will be. Remember, they said that 2024 will be a rebuilding year. That's what the collective West said about Project Ukraine. 2024, a year of rebuilding. So 2025, 2026, maybe the U.S., maybe the Pentagon is saying that's when we can go to war with Russia. So they have to sort out the money. They have to sort out the weapons. Yesterday, I reported on how Greece is going to get weapons to Ukraine. The U.S. is going to give new weapons to Greece. Greece is going to get old weapons to Ukraine in this circular type of weapons trading. And yesterday, we got confirmation from the Greek Minister of Defense, Dendias. He said that Greece is ready to sell tens of millions of euros worth of expiring ammunition to Ukraine. So that's how this goes. That's how money is made. And with what money is Ukraine going to buy these weapons? Well, it's going to buy these weapons with, our money, the EU taxpayer money, the U.S. taxpayer money, the Canadian taxpayer money, the money printing. That's how Ukraine is going to buy this weapon. So you see how money is made and how the weapons are going to be funneled to Ukraine. Even as they're having trouble approving the 61 billion and the 50 billion and stealing the 300 billion, they're still going to manage to get some weapons to Ukraine. And they're always going to manage to make money from all of this. That's how this works. The grift that is Project Ukraine. So Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, he was speaking at an election event in Russia, and he said that the POW exchanges between Ukraine and Russia will continue even after the shooting down of the IL-76, which Putin once again said was a Patriot missile, a US-made Patriot missile that shot down this IL-76. He said that the prisoner exchanges will continue. We had a very big prisoner exchange the other day. Something like 195 Russian prisoners were exchanged and were allowed to go home. Putin said, "We will not stop the exchanges. We need to get our guys back." That is what Putin said at a campaign meeting for his re-election bid in the upcoming presidential vote in Russia. So Putin also said that Russia needs to expand Ukraine's demilitarized zone. Moscow forces must ensure Kiev's troops cannot strike Russian cities with Western longer-range weapons, Putin said. Russia needs to create a large demilitarized zone in Ukraine, one that is big enough to ensure no long-range weapons can strike Russian cities, Vladimir Putin said on Wednesday. So how big does this demilitarized zone have to be? I think that is the big question. Does this demilitarized zone have to extend through Kharkov all the way to Dnipropetrovsk? Does it need to reach Kiev? Does it need to extend down to Odessa, or does it have to go all the way to Lvov? That's the $1 million question, isn't it? Anyway, expand the demilitarized zone. So Nuland is telling Putin that there are going to be surprises in 2024, and Putin is saying, hold my beer. We're going to need to expand the demilitarized zone. That's Putin's message to Nuland. We'll see who wins out. We will see. So, interesting statement from Putin, huh? Very interesting statement. So let's talk about the possible conflict with Iran. The Biden White House and Kirby. I always forget Kirby's position, National Security Admiral, spokesperson of propaganda, misinformation. Kirby, he said that the Biden White House is doing everything it can as they're planning for this big strike against Iran, which could be coming any day now, could be coming this evening, could be tomorrow, who knows. But he said that the Biden White House is making sure that the strikes that they conduct will not lead to a wider conflict, even though Iran has come out with statements saying that they are on high alert and they are warning against escalation. That is what Iran has said. But Kirby is saying that the Biden White House is trying to avoid a wider conflict. But Kirby also said that the retaliation is going to last many weeks. He also said that the targets are not going to be only military targets. It's also going to be a cyber attacks, and they're going to use other methods to retaliate against Iran. I imagine sanctions or financial attacks and stuff like that. He also said that the attacks are not going to be on Iranian territory. It's going to be targeting Iran infrastructure and facilities or Iran-backed militias outside of Iran. So that was also said in Kirby's statement, as well as reporting from NBC News. So that is the situation with the upcoming escalation between the United States and Iran. We also had an interesting article from The Intercept, which is claiming that they have seen documents from the Pentagon, or they have spoken to people in the Pentagon who claim that U.S. troops in Iraq, U.S. Air Force personnel in Iraq, have been ordered to remain on standby in case of on-ground U.S. involvement in the Israel-Hamas war. The Intercept reported on Tuesday, citing a Pentagon memo. That's an interesting development. We could be seeing a full-on war breaking out, like just everything just exploding in the Middle East. Israel, Gaza, Hezbollah, into Lebanon, Iran, the U.S. Who knows? Let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what is going to happen. Everything will depend on the strikes. The targets that they choose, that will indicate whether there has been some back channel diplomacy between the United States and Iran using intermediaries so that the U.S. can retaliate, save face, but there's no escalation, or if the targets are the real deal, like really meant to hurt Iran and to cause a lot of damage and loss of life to Iranian personnel or soldiers or something like that, then you know that we're heading towards a big escalation. So depending on the targets that we see the U.S. hitting, I think that will give us a clearer indication as to whether the Biden White House really is trying to avoid a wider war, or if we're going to see a full freaking war breaking out in the Middle East. We're talking just a full-on huge conflict. You already have a conflict between the Houthis and the United States and the UK. Yesterday, the Houthis said that Yemen said that they hit more cargo vessels, more ships in the Red Sea. The U.S. said that they successfully hit targets in Yemen. I mean, just an exchange of fire and an exchange of attacks. And it shows that the U.S., they don't have a strategy to take on Yemen or the Houthis. They can't do it. They don't have a strategy to take them on. They don't really understand what winning against Yemen is or means or how you do it. We're just seeing the Yemen continues to be able to hit ships in the Red Sea, and the U.S. is just hitting targets in Yemen, which I still don't understand what exactly the significance of those targets are. I don't know. I don't think anyone really knows what the overall plan in this little mini conflict is. Russian ships, Chinese ships, Saudi ships, they're allowed free passage through the Red Sea. It shows that Yemen is controlling this passage. They have very good control of this passage. They can allow ships from China, Russia, and Saudi Arabia to pass through. But any ship that they want to hit from US, UK, or any ship that's that's delivering supplies to Israel is they hit it. So it seems like Yemen has a very clear understanding of the battlefield, the goals, the objectives. They understand the region. They understand how to control everything. The U.S. and the U.K., I still don't understand what the end goal is. What are they trying to accomplish in all of this? Because if it's protecting the ships that are passing through the Red Sea, it's not working. That's for sure. Anyway, let's do one more story, one more big story, and then we'll make our way over to clown world territory. Just checking how I'm doing on time. So the farmers, protests, strikes, blockades, the siege of Paris. We have, I read that the UK is now going to start a strike as well. Is that true? Anyway, I read something about the UK getting involved on the farmer strike action. It's breaking out throughout Europe. I mean, all of the EU now is having some sort of farmer protest or farmer strike or farmer blockade. So this thing is spreading. It is spreading throughout the EU. But we have an article which claims that the European Union is going to extend tariff-free entry for Ukrainian grain. Flooding markets with cheap agricultural goods is a major source of discontent for farmers across the bloc. The European Commission has proposed extending the suspension of customs duties on agricultural goods from Ukraine and Moldova for another year. Vice President Margaritis Shinas told journalists on Wednesday. Isn't that interesting? The very reason, one of the main reasons that you have this blockade and these protests, not only in Paris and in France, but now all over Europe and maybe even in the UK, is the cheap grain from Ukraine. The grain that has no tariffs. And this is set to expire in June. This tariff exemption, from what I understand, is going to expire in June, but the EU is going to suspend the expiration of the tariff suspension. In other words, they're going to continue for another year. They're going to continue to allow Ukraine grain to enter the European Union without any type of tariffs or controls, which is exactly the opposite of what the farmers want, which signals that the EU really doesn't care about the farmers or the farmers' protest. It shows that the farmers' protest has not really hit the EU hard enough for them to change course. They still insist on Ukraine grain entering the European Union without any type of restrictions, undercutting the farmers. I thought that was an interesting development. It really shows that even as you have Paris blockaded, the kleptocrats, the elite in Brussels are just unfazed. And there are going to be blockades and protests in Belgium as well. But they really don't care. They really, no reverse gear. They don't care. Just keep on bringing in the Ukraine grain. Just keep on bringing it in. Unbelievable stuff. Macron, he was in Sweden, and he had dinner at the Stockholm Palace with his wife at a lavish gala dinner at the Stockholm Palace. Macron looking pretty suave, pretty relaxed as Paris is being blockaded. Incredible stuff, man. Remember when Macron went to the Elton John concert when there were protests in Paris, in France, and he went to see Elton John, something like that. I remember there was some protest, or I don't know if it was the Yellow Vests, but Paris was on fire, man. There were protests everywhere. The whole thing was falling apart. The whole country was falling apart. And what did Macron do? He went to see Elton John. So you have this huge blockade. Farmers are pissed off. Major highways into Paris are being blocked off. I've seen highways on fire and barricades being moved into position to block the roads. And what's Macron doing? He's attending a lavish gala dinner at the Stockholm Palace. Oh man. All right. So Japan and Germany signed a military supply sharing pact. I saw this story, thought it was interesting, because there's another story from the Telegraph which says Germany in permanent crisis as property market crumbles, recession beckons for Europe's largest economy as it shrinks in the latest quarter. So I just saw these two articles and I was just thinking, let's see, Germany's economy crumbling in recession, and Germany and Japan sign a military pact. Yeah. We've been here before, haven't we? We've been here before. Anyway, let's do a cloud world. And the former Polish Prime Minister, Mr. Morawiecki, he made a statement yesterday, and he said that the government of Viktor Orban, the Hungarian government, is indeed being blackmailed by the European Union. He said he read the Financial Times article, and he said this is blackmail, and he doesn't agree with this blackmail. He doesn't agree with the European Union blackmailing Hungary. So that's a good statement from Morawiecki. But, a little too late. What's the phrase? Too little, too late. He should have taken this stance in support of Hungary before the elections, which maneuvered Tusk into power. Instead, he took a pro-Ukraine stance. He bet everything on Ukraine. He kind of ditched Hungary. And, well, now you have Tusk as the Prime Minister of Poland. Now you have Morawiecki saying that the EU is trying to blackmail Poland and we don't support it. I agree with his statement, but you should have been saying these things 3 months ago, 6 months ago. Instead, you bet everything on Project Ukraine and you didn't support Orban and Orban's position connected to Project Ukraine, and now you're not in power anymore. The Washington Post is reporting that John Podesta is going to replace John Kerry as Special Climate Envoy. Oh my God, John Podesta. God, my God. Oh boy. From bad to worse. Kerry to Podesta. Let's see. Pentagon denies Taylor Swift is an asset for government psyops. Taylor Swift. That's a cool name, Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift. She is not a government psyop. The Pentagon is denying this. And when the Pentagon denies something, well, what does that mean? Oh, man. All right. I think I will end the video there. The Duran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter X. And go to the Duran shop, 15% off all t-shirts. Take care.